I had kidney problems, I had eye problems, I'd just broken up with a girlfriend, and it came to a point where I became incredibly depressed and I made an attempt on my own life. I tried to kill myself with codeine and alcohol. And the next morning I woke up, thank God I failed at that attempt, because the next morning I woke up and I vomited everything up and I wrote the first draft of 237 in 36 hours.
I remember Murali coming to me in 2004. We'd known each other beforehand, but he had this fantastic script that he had given to me, and I got to read it that night, and I was really moved by it. It was a really raw, powerful script that we knew was shootable. One location, young actors, we knew this was something we could do. So over the course of the next 6 months, he would be ringing me up every second day, 2-3 times a day occasionally, saying, what do you think of this line? What do you think of this line? How can we change this? How should we change this? And it was a really fantastic experience. It was good to see the script develop.
I originally met Murali in regard to coming on board what was then entitled All in a Day as Director of Photography. I was immediately struck by this incredibly powerful, honest script and Murali's determination to get it made. As time went on, Murali and I formed a production company together called M2 Entertainment. I came on board the film as a producer, and we hope to make many more films in the future.
And a sensational goal. How can Arsenal possibly come back after such an unbelievable finish as that?
After I wrote the first draft of 237, I realised the importance of keeping my mind busy, because when one's depressed, the worst thing they can do is have time to themselves to mull over their problems. And so I realised at that time that, the best thing for me to do would be to try and get this film up, as impossible as it seemed at the time. That was the healthiest thing for me to do. So initially I went to a couple of film schools, both interstate and here in Adelaide, and for interviews. And, the interviews started off really well, but then both of the independent film schools started telling me that independently of each other, started telling me that it's not realistic to want to make a film in your 20s or your 30s, for that matter, to focus on music videos and ads, etc. And I didn't believe them. I didn't think that was true. So I ended up walking out, and I guess that was the end of film school for me. So what I did do, though, is I went to a bookshop called Borders, and I read every book on the shelf pertaining to film and television and theatre, just trying to keep myself busy and learn as much as I can. And then I started looking into, the taxation system and 10BA, and I thought maybe, just maybe, I might have a shot at raising this money. And I realised at the time that my biggest ability, at the time I knew nothing about film, was the gift of the gab. I could bullshit. And so at the time there was a little booklet that came out in our local paper called The Power Pack, which listed the 20 richest guys in Adelaide. And in that booklet were real estate developers from all over the shop. There were jewellery shop owners, etc., etc. And so I literally went knocking on doors trying to find people to invest in my film, and it was tough. But eventually we got someone to put the money up, and that allowed us to get into production.
So here's what I reckon we should do. The exit, go to the locker. When those guys are at their locker, we should have a couple of people walk past the camera. Yep. So drift down.
I went about casting 237 in a very different way. I didn't think auditions were the best things for teenagers, because basically, obviously, they didn't have a lot of experience, and I could lose a gem in someone waking up on the wrong side of the bed. And so I went about it in a couple of different ways. Some people, I saw a photo of them in their acting agency, and I'd basically, bring them in and we'd workshop, have lunch, get to know each other, and if I liked them, I'd cast them. And another time, I saw the character of Uneven Stephen, played by Charles Baird, walking down the street, and I went up to him and I said, "Mate, interested in acting?" And he looked at me like I was crazy, but he read the script and he enjoyed it. And over 4 months of workshopping, he really got a hold of his craft. And some other kids, I went and got a job in an acting school, and they didn't know I was a director looking for actors. They saw me as their teacher for 10 weeks, so they really opened up to me, and I'd pick them out and bring them and workshop them. And overall, I'm incredibly proud of the cast. I think they all fit the role perfectly.
So, how's your holiday?
Oh, God. It's so sunny down here. Wish you were here with me.
Yeah. Before this film, I'd basically done a couple of TV commercials, and I did a few extra parts and a few bit roles. But this was basically, it was my stepping stone, and it was the very first feature I had done. And Yeah, so it was a big learning curve for me, and I learnt so much on set.
I think it was really cool coming onto the project so early when we were still in the stages of finalising and messing around with the script, and seeing Murali as a director work his magic in so many ways on page, and then coming into filming and see him do it right there in front of the camera really opened my eyes as to his courage and commitment and strengths that he was only probably learning about himself day by day.
Out of my way!
First time that me and Murali got together, he came straight up to me while we were doing one of our classes, took me aside and said, basically, look mate, I want to meet with you, I want you to play the character of Sean. And that was pretty much it. We went to a cafe, we sat down, we had a coffee, and yeah, from there and over the next, what was it, I guess 18 months, we workshopped, and yeah, I became Sean and we created Sean, I guess.
Alright, well, yeah, I'll talk to you about it in the first break, okay? Alright, yep, cool, set.
The moment I was cast in 237 was brilliant, like, seriously amazing. Mel! Because I'd never done anything behind the camera before. I'm leaving, Melody! So to be involved in a feature film, like, well, that was massive. So I was just over the moon, and I rang Dad, and he was like, oh, well done, son, I'm so proud of you, and whatnot. And yeah, so it was just a brilliant moment, and it's been fantastic ever since.
The rehearsing process was a grueling one. I always said that performances were going to be critical to this film, and you can't ever rehearse chemistry. The actors came in on draft 45 of the script, and we shot on draft 76, which means they had a lot of input. I wrote certain elements of the characters around the actors' personalities, and they threw in ideas, I threw in ideas, and so by the time we came to shoot, they knew the script as well as I did. First, is it true? And then you just keep struggling. Is it true? Okay, the first one's a subdued one. The second one, I just want you to really just get in there and force it out of there. Yeah, okay?
The rehearsal process was a long one, and I'm not sure if they're usually that long, but I mean, it was so rewarding in the end. I mean, I remember my first rehearsal, I was terrible, and Murali will tell you that, and everybody else in that room will tell you that I was terrible, although I did have a pretty difficult scene to have to deal with first up. But I mean, the fact that we got the chance to sort of explore these characters so much and give them so much detail was just amazing. I mean, like, we each wrote backstories for the characters, like really in-depth, detailed backstories. So whenever we were actually, when it came to shooting the scenes, we sort of, you know, we knew where we'd come from, and hence we knew where we were going. So I think that having such a long rehearsal process was very, very beneficial in the end.
Stevie, you alright, bro?
Oh. An accident.
You've pissed yourself, man. That's horrible.
You reek.
First time I read the script, we were on draft 45, and I didn't quite understand what type of project it was. And then I'd read the script at my friend's house, who was also in the film, and it was really, really strong. And some of the issues it dealt with were so intense and so controversial. And I thought it'd just be an awesome time to actually try and put what was written on the page to stage and see what it looked like.
One of the things that became very clear very early on in 237 was that Murali had a great instinct for directing actors, despite not having any experience in terms of production and directing. It was evident that right from day one that we were going to have a great movie with wonderful performances, because Murali was so passionate about that and had a wonderful instinct for it. 237 was an unusual project, given that we didn't have any government finance at all. The film was entirely privately funded, and it was the fact that we managed to get it finished is testament to particularly Murali's perseverance. And we had some times when we were running out of money on set, and Murali was on the telephone ringing up private investors, hoping to be able to secure finance that would see us through to the end of a week.
Nick and Murali came to us with a small amount of funding on board. Some investors had helped him get the project underway. They came to us to try and take it to the next level. We'd been involved with a lot of big films around the world, with films out of the US, and we could bring money to the project, which we did, but we could also bring our expertise. And there's a lot of people here who have a lot of experience on feature films, especially in the post-production area. And we also wanted to grow our production involvement in feature films. So we decided to invest, and away we went.
The day before we started shooting, in our January segment of the shoot, an investor pulled out, and I remember at the time I was thinking, I could pull the plug right now, my entire cast and crew will be pissed off at me. We'd been leading up to this for months. Or I could pull the plug at the end of the week and I'll have a quarter of the film in the can. They'll still be pissed off at me, but I'll have a quarter of the film in the can. And so I decided that's what I'd do, and I rescheduled the entire shoot. The most important scenes were at the beginning of the shoot. So basically, if it came down to it, I could cut a short film from it. And so I did that, but in between takes, I was on the phone to everybody and anybody, and on the Tuesday, someone came on set and he signed a check for a certain amount of money that allowed us to get through the next shoot. It cleared by Thursday, I paid people by Friday, and that story there is pretty much what happened to us every step of the way. When something went wrong, a miracle occurred, and to allow us to sort of move forward steadily. And I really think 237 in itself is a miracle. The fact that it got made, but the fact that it, you know, is getting reactions and it can help people, it's a miracle unto itself. I remember on the first day of shooting, it took me all day to pluck up the courage to walk up to Nick Matthews to ask him why the hell they kept clapping that clapperboard thing, and I had no idea. So for the first 2 weeks, he had to cover for me. Technically, I had a vision. I knew what I wanted. I knew how to get the performances of my actors, but technically, I had no clue.
237 has been an amazing journey for me. We really wanted to create a new camera style for this film. We weren't interested in photographing the film in a traditional shot reverse shot way with establishers. I don't think we have a single tripod shot in the whole film. Luckily we managed to get an amazing Steadicam operator, Lewis Poulai, on board, and he has really managed to give us everything we could ever want in a shot. Murali has really pushed me as a cinematographer to places that I have never been before. And I think that his approach, in a way, the fact that he hasn't come from a background in filmmaking, has actually been a blessing, because he doesn't have any traditional training, and he's in that way he has an approach that is really fresh, and that's been really interesting as a cinematographer. The whole way in which this production was put together has been really unconventional. We have a variety of formats that we're shooting on. Traditionally, obviously features are shot on film, on 35mm, and we haven't done that. We've used a variety of digital formats mixed with a little bit of film where we could afford it. And so the challenge has really been to integrate all the footage together.
Fucking hell. Fucking be sick. What the fuck did you do? Is it true?
One of the things I really enjoyed about shooting 237 was the fact that, in a sense, we didn't have any rules. We were able to shoot the film, given that we were in control of the production, we were able to shoot it in a way that we wanted to shoot it. And you know, example of that was that one day Murali and I were talking about how we wanted a particular scene in the last act of the film to have a very documentary feel, and I suggested that we shoot it off a shopping trolley instead of use a Steadicam, and so we arranged for a couple of camera assistants to go down to a department store and essentially steal a couple of shopping trolleys out of the car park. Of course, we gave them back at the end of the shoot.
I remember one day on the shoot, and really this is really indicative of the team spirit that was ever present on set. Our gaffer had put a 2,000 watt light under a fire sprinkler, and we're halfway through a scene, and this is the scene where Marcus is checking his marks, and suddenly we hear something pop, And then water is just everywhere, and we flooded the entire first floor of the school. And I remember thinking, oh God, it's over. They're not going to let us back after this. But full credit to the team. While I was on the phone to the insurance company trying to figure out what to do, I came back and everyone had got changed, was on their knees just cleaning everything up. Within an hour there was no water, just damp floors. Within 2 or 3 hours everything had been dried and we were back shooting again. And to me, that's just that's mind-blowing, because that could have so easily put an end to the film as a whole, because we'd filmed half the film at that location, and to lose the school halfway through the shoot would have been devastating.
You right, Luke?
Murali just wanted to make sure that we could all do our most intense scenes, because if you could pull them off, then the rest of it was relatively easy in comparison, but we still workshopped almost every scene until we thought we had something that was near enough to perfect when we came to shooting. And the whole cast was involved in everyone else's rehearsals as well, so one other character would read another character for you to help you out, and it was a really good dynamic in terms of the cast, and that carried over onto shooting as well. So it was a really intensive process, and I mean, looking at the film now, I'm glad we did it, because you can see how everything's really, really well put together.
One scene that I had, it was fairly difficult, was where I was reminiscing on the rape scene, and it was a bit of a crying scene, and it's where I storm out of a classroom. I was a little bit nervous about it because it was the first time I had to film where I'm actually really crying, getting into it, and obviously I was a bit worried, and Murali took me aside and we had a chat, and it was really great because instead of him sitting on the split, he came in and sat next to me during the take, and he was talking things through to me, and it was really good. He got my emotions and my tears flowing, and it was really good, and we were so happy afterwards because we worked together, and yeah, and hopefully we got a good result.
It was a very sort of, family type of atmosphere. And like I said before, me, Murali, and all the other people involved in the crew, Director of Photography Nick Matthews, worked so closely together that it was just that much easier to get good performances out.
The shoot for me was something that was incredibly rewarding. At the end of each day, when I'd go home and look at my rushes, I could slowly see just a whole bunch of shots becoming 237, and God, it's almost, I've never given birth, but I'd imagine it's what it's like, and it was fantastic. By the end of 237, it was almost like we'd created all the pieces of the puzzle, and now we had the task of putting it all together. At the end of every day of shooting, Nick and I would come home to his house and basically start editing the film on his little iMac and on iMovie actually. And after we'd finished the shoot, we eventually plucked up the courage and bought Final Cut for Dummies and taught ourselves to cut. Over the next 9 months, we each worked on different edits. At the end of every week, we'd come together and build a project comprising of the best parts of each of our edits. And eventually it became clear, though, that we'd given 237 all we could and we needed a new, fresh pair of eyes. And we brought Dale Roberts in from Oasis Post, our third editor, and he lent an entirely new perspective to the film, and he's fantastic. I'm really proud of the work that we all did together.
My first involvement with the 237 was reading the script and just being totally blown away with this fantastically written project. Murali really has a gift for getting the words on the page. So when we got involved, they were quite a long way through the process. They had shot 60 to 70% of the movie. They had done their first cut, and they'd spent a long time working together editing the film. But I think there came a point when they realised that they needed to have another input, a fresh set of eyes into the editing process, because they were so close to it. I don't think they sort of lost the sense of where they were at. They knew they had a good film, but in Murali's words, you wanted a great film. Structurally, the film was incredibly difficult to get right. We knew when we had it wrong, and because we had repeated scenes from different angles and different perspectives, and it was a matter of where they sit in the time, and sort of getting the fabric right of the film was a challenge. So that was the greatest part. But once we had it right, we knew we were being moved emotionally, so we knew that was the right pace. The bits were in the right spot. He was just so focused on getting every part of the process right. So we had a great working relationship with, because I had a young baby at the time, so I was up doing the bottle feed. I was in here by 6 a.m. and there was notes on the desk from Murali because he'd been here all night. So we actually worked quite well, where we would cross over and have these note-taking sessions and briefing sessions, and then I would be left to do like the day cut, and then Murali would come in as the night owl and watch what I'd done. And he loves working in collaboration, but I think we also, when he's focused on his decision-making for the film, he likes to be alone, and he likes to be focused and really considering every possible scenario. So I think we went through the huge amounts of, fine cutting and recutting, and then little notes would be like, 10 frames off here or 5 frames off there, but they would also be, let's move this here and do that there. So our relationship was great, and being first time, he wasn't going to let anything get in the way. Politics, money, budget, producers, whatever. He knew what he wanted, and he wasn't going to stop until we had what he thought was the best possible movie.
When we first started shooting 237, we didn't know what kind of post-production we were going to have, so we didn't know if we'd have access to equipment to grade the film. So my principle was always to get it right on the day and have it looking right when it was captured. In the end, we had access to wonderful post-production with Murali K, who graded the film with me. He was able to use some very subtle grading techniques just to even up the film and maintain the look that Murali and I always wanted, and that was a slightly muted, very neutral film.
Hey, Mel!
In this particular film, I worked closely with Nick and Murali to show the mood from the colour of the pictures as we moved through the film. Exteriors were kept to a nice muted, low saturated look. The interiors were kept not too dirty, but not too pristine. Bathroom scenes were handled in a totally different way to work on the light. And then obviously, as we move through the film, the mood changes. When we get into the suicide scene, obviously that whole world was inverted, and we went to a very high-con, very greeny, grungy look. From the very beginning, we set out to make this film physically the best it could be given the situation, and I think we have achieved that look. The film's got a very unique look, and what's nice is that you settle into it within the first couple of minutes, and once you've seen that look and you feel it, you watch the film and literally the audience is forgetting what format the film was shot on, which is great.
In doing a suicide scene in 237, I felt I had a huge responsibility. I could have done it like other films. I felt where it was almost like a cut, a gasp, and it was over, but I didn't want to do it like that. I wanted to show the pain of suicide. I wanted to show the brutality. And in that, I almost wanted it to work as a deterrent. So I had to make this suicide scene look incredibly real, and the prosthetics team did an amazing job with making the actual cut look real, and from there we went into a grueling process of basically repainting her arm, getting rid of all the prosthetics, and Murali K, the flame artist, did an incredible job.
In the final act of the film with the suicide, we sort of had a fairly challenging job in that the actor wore a lot of prosthesis and rigs had to be removed from literally a roving camera. So Nick was able to shoot totally uninhibited by the visual effects, and then we removed the rigs as a post effect.
After we finished shooting in our January segment of our shoot in 2005, I started doing a rough edit of the film, and it came to a point where it didn't look like I had the money at that time to complete the shoot, so I started thinking about sound, and at the time my sound designer had pulled out of the film, and I was so upset because this guy had taught me the importance of sound. He'd reiterated what I can achieve with sound, and to have someone who I considered a mentor pull out was a big blow to me. And I remember the day I found this out, I was livid, I was seeing red, I was that upset, and I remember saying, and excuse my French, but I remember saying, fuck it, if I can't have him, I'm going for the best in the world. And my favourite sound designer is a guy named Leslie Schutz. He's worked on everything from Apocalypse Now to Star Wars to Elephant to Good Will Hunting and to Milos Forman's new film. So I thought maybe, just maybe, I could get this guy. Emailed and wrote letters to about 30 reporters who'd interviewed him over the last 30 years of his career, and one of these reporters, and I still don't know which one, was kind enough to forward my email to Leslie, and Leslie, I think out of curiosity, got in touch with me, and so we started talking by email, and it basically came down to me saying, please let me talk to you on the phone, him saying I'm too busy, me saying please, 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 he's saying I'm too busy, and after a good dozen emails back and forth like that, I finally got him on the phone, because I knew if I got him on the phone, I could convey my passion for the film to him. And so I don't remember exactly what I said to him on that phone call that day, but I was rambling. It was 2 a.m. here, 8 o'clock LA time, and I was absolutely rambling, just saying anything and everything to try and get him on. And eventually he said to me, okay, come to Cannes next week and we'll meet. I'll look at your rough cut. And I was like, sweet, okay, I'll meet you there. And but I didn't think at the time that I had no money. So we went back to one of our original investors, and I said to him, listen, I probably won't be able to pay you back, but mate, this is a huge opportunity and you got to protect that investment. And so, and he agreed, and he sent us over to Cannes, Nick and myself, and we met with Leslie and showed him a rough cut, and he loved it. And he said to me, I work through so much crap sometimes, you got to treat yourself artistically. And he shook our hand and he said, I'm in. And that was just huge for us. We could not believe it. It was incredible to have someone like Leslie Schutz contribute in such a major way to our film. It was mind-blowing.
I receive many offers from filmmakers without resources, and I usually try to respond to them because the work is often more satisfying than the bigger budget films I work on. Also, there's a creativity that comes from making a film that is outside of the normal system that I find inspiring. In the case of Murali and 237, I was not disappointed. I was moved by the subject of teen suicide, having known someone firsthand who took her life in her 17th year. I was also awestruck by the performances in the film, which were completely real, and the filmmaking style, which created a trance-like feeling that I rarely experience when watching a film. When I finally started to create the soundtrack, I was very anxious, because I knew that Murali had high expectations, and I didn't want to let him down. In spite of the lack of budget and time, I felt in my soul that I needed to give everything I could to him and the film. Finally, Murali arrived in Los Angeles to hear what I had done. It was a beautiful working relationship for the next 3 weeks, because even though we were in agreement about many things I had done or needed to be done, Murali was pursuing a vision for his film that he would not easily compromise. So we searched for other solutions to making a soundtrack essentially without music that would still move the audience in a way that supported the strong acting and cinematography. We followed some blind alleys, but finally we found our way. It was with joy that we put the finishing touches to the sound design, and Murali went back to Australia. But there were still scheduling problems, so Murali had to come to New York, where I was working on another job, to complete the final mix. Again, a combination of his perseverance and flexibility enabled us to create a workable schedule where we mixed at nights over a period of 2 weeks and really perfected the soundtrack, which was now augmented by the precise sound effects and ambience accents added by Francis Lindsay and the excellent dialogue editing by Martin Zub and the music of composer Mark Chance. Although the work experience and my pride in the final product were sufficient rewards, the incredible reaction to this film by the people who have seen it so far has been very gratifying. I personally would put my experience of working with Murali up there with working with Francis Ford Coppola and Gus Van Sant. I'm incredibly proud not only of the people I worked with on this film, but more than anything by the end product. And I know that the entire sound team is waiting for Murali and Nick to get back into production on their second film, so we can all hang out again and create more magic.
I would absolutely love to work with Murali and the same crew again. Nick, the DOP, he was fantastic. And yeah, I'm so excited. Like, Murali has amazing writing ideas, and everything he writes I'm so interested by, and it's always so new and fresh, and it's never been done before, and I don't even know where he gets his ideas from, but they're just so amazing.
His perseverance is incredible. It's incredible. That man just doesn't take no for an answer, and I think that's just going to get him a long way, and good luck to him.
Filmmaking is a very risky business, and sometimes that's what you have to do, though. You just have to take a risk. in filmmaking and in business generally. And Nick and Murali took a risk. A couple of young guys came along and thought, we've got nothing to lose, let's go and make a movie. And they did. And they got the ball rolling, and then they came to us and we took a risk by coming on board at that stage. The early investors took a bigger risk because they come on much before us and with only a script in their hand. We had a little bit more to see, but it was a calculated risk and it paid off. It was a very successful venture for us. We're really proud of it. It's received critical acclaim, and with that acclaim has come financial success as well, as often is the case. And it's a film that we're very proud of, though, artistically.
I'm really proud of 237. I think that despite at times a lack of money and shooting on a very tight budget, I think that our collective passion for the script shines through, and that Murali and I always say a low budget is never an excuse for a shoddy product, and I hope that that 237 is testament to that theory.
Murali was, as he does, the way that we talked and collaborated together, arm in arm, walking down the hallway, discussing how we were going to approach the scene. He said to me, he looked at me straight in the eye and he said, "Mate, this one's going to Cannes, the next one's going to win an Oscar." And I just looked at him and I said, "Yeah." And that was it. And look what's happened. And it's not going to surprise me if Murali's next film does win an Oscar, because, like I said, the sky's the limit for all of us.
2 years ago I was still in school, and I'd never ever thought, not in my wildest dreams, did I think any of this could happen, to have finished and completed a feature film at 21, to go on to compete in the Cannes Film Festival, go to Toronto, Melbourne Film Festival and various other festivals around the world, to be released in countries that I'd never even heard of 2 years ago is mind-blowing. It still scares me to this day, and I'm just so thankful that I've started making films at this early age so I can have a long career ahead of me. I've forged relationships with crew members that I know I'll work with for the rest of my career, and I can't wait to get working on the next one.
Open the door! You sure there's someone in there? Just open the fucking door!